which certainly seems like a good idea. I think it runs between Carson and Solomon there. Kind of along the lines that you just mentioned, I just wondered, is there any impact potentially to the schedule or the cost of the project with that addition? And I also wondered if the payment for undergrounding those utilities, is that something that perhaps Carson City has franchise rights to, or is that all on Carson City to do that work?
Yeah, so the amendment that came through the Board of Supervisors included the undergrounding as well as an amendment for completion of design of the RAISE project. As far as the cost of undergrounding the overhead utilities, the city is pursuing an agreement with NV Energy that accounts for 50% of the undergrounding cost. So we have the $2 million in federal appropriation funds that we are proposing to match with the NV Energy UMP underground management plan to help with those costs. There's also, as far as our municipal code and the ability to require relocation, we are able to have them relocate, but not necessarily underground. And so the plan to put underground may end up coming under that cost of the UMP. I think I missed one part of yours, though.
Yeah, Commissioner Dotson, you also mentioned the schedule due to the amendment. We're working very hard. Oh, sorry, Randy Rice, city engineer for the record. We're working very hard to make sure that that does not happen. However, Darren mentioned that there could be some shift in the schedule due to working with other agencies. And so while we're certainly glad and happy to have the money and really appreciate working with these other partner agencies, there are some strings that come attached to that, right? And so working with FHWA closely and following their guidelines and requirements may push that back. And some of that's tied to the easements and right-of-way acquisitions that come with, undergrounding, adding transformers and conduit and things like that. So,
thanks, Randy. I'd just like to say that I do support. I think it's a great thing to do to take care of, for a couple of reasons. I noticed in the appeal a letter to the editor this morning with a picture of a utility pole in the middle of the sidewalk. So. That gentleman should be pleased with the work here, and it'll certainly make that tight portion of the corridor easier to handle. Thank you.
Okay, so just in general, a couple little things, if we can just look at the feasibility report, just for little typos or little things, because this will live in perpetuity. Documents tend to do that, and people always want to come back to them. So on page 4, if we can just run through them to make sure that the preferred alternative shown in figure A should be figure 1, just little things like that. And then there was on page 10 of theirs, or page 20 of our packet, on the setting, they reference the 2020 census number. If you could please double check that, because that's not the number we've been using in the city. It's, I think, 58,609, not 55,000. So just to update for the records on that. And then, where was my question? I had one I highlighted as a question. And if anybody else has any, you want to go over some of yours, Ms. Schutte? Because again, we have a chance to have this all good for 20 years from now when someone's looking at it. Schutte?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
On page 288, so page 4 of one of the feasibility studies. It just references in 1984, a high school appears south on the eastern portion of the site, and that Carson High was built in the 70s. And so I was just confused by that because earlier it says in 1980 only the eastern portion of the site is depicted on a map. not talking about the high school, but since 1980, there was a date previous to 84, and it's only in 84 that the high school is mentioned. So
And we graduated from there, so we know it was
we
before this.
know.
We happen to know that one for real. That's like,
Yes. Give me a minute. I'll find the other one. Page 320 on the 1.0 project description and scope. And I might have understood or misunderstood this, but in the middle of the paragraph, it says, while traffic has decreased since the completion of the freeway, crashes have increased. The amount of travel lanes remain the same, with 4 west of North Carson Street. Should that say with 4 east of North Carson Street?
We'll look into that.
Okay, and
Thank
the
you.
remainder of the sentences, and 6 lanes at I-580. So those were my 2 corrections.
we actually do read these. I want you to know somebody does not photocopy them for nothing. We actually read the packets.
Thank you, Supervisor Schutte.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any points to look at or updates or anything? Mr. Dodson?
Madam Chair.
Yes. Chaz?
This is Chad. I have a couple of things along the lines of what you've just been talking about, just little typo checks on packet page 25, table 4. It says existing conditions, level of service. It's showing there's a signal at State Street, and I don't think there is a signal at State Street. And then I had a question on packet page 19, which is the project map. It shows a pedestrian crossing with pedestrian activated signal, like midway between State Street and Root Street, opposite North Park. And I wondered if any sort of how that came about at that particular location. I just wondered whether the crossing at State Street would be more appropriate for, or a flashing beacon or not. So, I mean, I presume staff looked into this and maybe it's still in flux, but I just wondered how we came up with that particular location.
I'm actually going to point to our transportation manager to see if he can give us the full background on that one.
Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. I believe at this stage of the feasibility study, we haven't identified a final location for our crossing. I think State Street's a logical location, but the intent is that we would have some form of protected, enhanced pedestrian crossing somewhere between Solomon and Roop Street.
Yeah, thanks. I sort of thought that might be where you were at this point.
Well, and because State Street's also where you're considering that there'll be no left-hand turn.
Correct. Yeah. So State Street's a logical location for a likely logical location for that crossing, because we could provide a little bit additional enhancement through the construction of a median and some of those features out there.
Okay. Then I had a question on page 23 or packet page 33, and I'm just trying to understand this particular table 7, the level of service results, when I look at number 4, which is, I think we're falling in love with State Street, it appears. But, so F is, and we don't want that, right? So do we want to talk to me about that? So I think you're right about State Street's kind of bubbling up here.
Yeah. So regarding tables 7 and 8 on packet page 33 and 34, these show that if we were to, these would be looking forward and taking the future conditions under the existing roadway configuration. In other words, if we continued to allow the road to with the number of lanes and the full access at State Street, we would operate under a level surface F in 2030 for that AM direction. And then we would operate at level of service F, E, and F for the AM, midday, and PM in 2050, as shown in Table 8 on packet page 34, without any mitigation. That's if we just left things alone, that is where that intersection would operate. And so when we look at potentially evaluating the operations of a particular intersection, we're looking at ways to mitigate and improve those levels of service, and the elimination of the left turns out of State Street will mitigate those level of service conditions because vehicles are no longer waiting on State Street for an inordinate amount of time trying to make a left turn. If that movement's eliminated, vehicles will be able to turn right, left in, or right in, eliminating and reducing the delay of vehicles at that particular intersection. So I don't want to get too technical into a traffic background, but that's generally the summary of those tables for State Street.
So is there a table then that shows if we make proposed enhancements, that level of service then comes in to meet the terms? Because I guess that's what I'm trying to point out or help the public understand, that these ones will be in what Carson City considers an inappropriate level of service because it'll be less than a D. And the corrective action will now bring it back into a D or better. Is that correct?
Yes,
So
I would
that's-
point you to the tables shown on packet page 125, 126, which show the proposed corridor in 2030 and 2050. And you can look at that location at State Street and William Street. The level of service is significantly better. For instance, it's showing a BCC in 2030, and it's showing a CB overall of D, and it's showing, CBB and CBB in 2030 and 2050.
So everything is able to come into city code or
Correct.
city
We
preference.
will be within our code required level of service.
I just think it's important for the public to understand, because I assure you, they're not going to be happy about a few of the changes until they get used to it. It's important that we're able to articulate why and what they get for that is they get the road at the proper level of service. So, okay, thank you. Okay, is anybody, Mr. Dotson?
On the Gold Dust West intersection, you're calling for protected left turns from William Street. Is what is out there now not considered protected left turns? It's got the yellow flasher left turn that says yield, and then eventually it turns to a protected left turn. So is that going to be a change to that, to where it will be strictly just a green left turn arrow?
I'll take that one, Darren. That's a great question, Commissioner Dodson. Thanks. We've had some discussions with our control systems manager regarding that particular operation of that signal. The challenge with the current configuration, it's what's called a protected permitted signal, right? The flashing yellow arrow permits you to turn when it's flashing, but it does turn green, which is the protected portion of that. There are portions of the day where traffic on William Street becomes very heavy, and we want to protect those left turns. You have to cross essentially 3 lanes of traffic. The MUTCD and the Highway Capacity Manual have some guidance that that's maybe not the best practice during high volume situations because of safety. It's hard for vehicles to see all the oncoming traffic. So the recommendation is to move to a protected phase during some of the peak hours, and then during some of the off-peak hours in the middle of the night. There's no reason necessarily to have a protected left turn when there's no traffic, so perhaps we could maintain the protected permitted during less lower volume periods of the day. So that's sort of the basis of the recommendation and sort of where we're going forward.
Anybody have any other?
Yep.
Mr. Novak?
There's quite a bit in this package, going back a long way.
Yes, there is.
And I didn't want to, get into all the little nitpicky things here and there, but some of the bigger questions I had, we still don't know what type of transit service we're going to have on Highway 50 for bus turnouts, right? And I don't know if that'll be in the original design or just have that in mind, since this is going to be out there a long time when you finally do build it.
Yeah, the transit, I think we have preliminary locations based on our initial draft of our route planning adjustments. At this point, pending input from the RTC on those routes, which we'll bring back probably later this year, we will have sort of a final location, and we expect to be able to build those bus turnouts, should those be the finalized routes, as part of the William Street project.
And then on the signal end, I think we all agree getting good coordination and timing is important. I wasn't sure, and I sent you a comment, are you tying into the interchange signal at 580? Right? Because it looks like you were just stopping at Gold Dust. Well, there's that busy interchange, and how's that actually working?
So
Yeah, I
I'll-
mean-
you want me to handle that?
No,
Or you want to
can
take it?
handle that one.
Go for it.
Yeah, so we're certainly planning on doing timing coordination, signal coordination throughout upon completion of the project and throughout the duration of the project. A lot of our signals are tied together through various communication methodologies, whether it's fiber optic connections or through radio connections. We would look to ensure, because of the proximity of Lampa Lane, because of the proximity of I-580 and Gold Dust West, to interconnect those signals so that they do have that communication. So while that specific description isn't necessarily in the feasibility study, we as the city, being the operator of those signals, certainly will work to connect and coordinate that. That's an excellent point as well, I think you bring up, and that's related to the CAMPO board specifically in reference to our Carson Area Transportation System Management Plan, which is going to identify particular areas and corridors for additional connectivity and coordination. So everything kind of goes hand in hand when we look at these as a big picture. And I appreciate you bringing that up, though, Commissioner Novak.
Thank you.
Additional.
And then that whole Section 4F park issue, as long as you're meeting with NDOT and Federal Highways, I think it'll come out. But State Historic Preservation Office always has comments. So be prepared. Thank you.
Yeah, he said heads up. Yeah. Any further discussion? Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, I don't see any on that. So then I am ready for a motion, but instead of as presented, it should be as discussed so that they can make any small changes if there was some corrections to make to the report. So I'm ready for a motion if someone, Mr. Dotson.
I move to approve the East William Complete Streets feasibility study as discussed.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, Chaz. It's a little bit of a delay, but we got it. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 5B, which is discussion and possible action regarding a formal amendment to our CAMPO federal fiscal year 2021 to 24 tip. Pretty straightforward, but do we have some, want to just briefly take us through anything on that one?
Sure.
Bringing all the new money in and, yep, finishing it up.
Closing one out. Closing one out.
Mark.
Marquise Williams, Transportation Planner for the record. So this is the formal amendment to the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program for CAMPO. This is Amendment 2111, and we will be, we have 3 new projects that we're adding and 1 that we are closing out. So to walk through the 3 projects, the first one is Appian Way, the Appian Way Traffic Signal and Intersection Improvement Project, where we'll be adding $1.1 million in congressionally designated spending appropriations, along with $950,000 in local match. The second is the Western Nevada Safe Routes to School program, with $595,266 in transportation alternatives program funding, or TAP funding, and $31,330 in local funding. And the third project we're adding is the Wrong Way Driver project with $950,000 in highway safety improvement, or HSIP funding, and $65,000 in state gas tax funding. We will also be closing out the Center Drive rehabilitation project, and that one's completed. So this one is subject to our public engagement, public participation program, and as such, the comment period was open from June 18th to July 13th, earlier today, and we did not receive any comments.
I'm shocked. No,
It's riveting.
it's riveting.
With that, happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Does any member have a question?
Yes, I
Mr.
did.
Novak?
On packet page 370, the wrong way driver system, we're talking 5 interchanges, and I see 5 dots, but 2 of them are on 50. Is that a drafting issue, or is that supposed to go further south on 580?
I believe there's, Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager, I believe there's 2 separate installations on Fairview.
Right. So,
I'm not sure. This isn't,
One on
I'll
one
be
side.
honest, this is an NDOT-led project. I don't have the specifics or details of the project, but based on my understanding that there's 2 at Fairview, one southbound, one northbound, and that's
Yep.
due to the configuration of the intersection, but I
Right.
can't confirm that.
one on one side, one on the other.
You just look at the dots, I think there's a couple of dots in the wrong spot. But other than that, I like the project. It's just,
Okay, excellent.
I think that's correct. I should know the answer to that, but
Right.
we'll make sure to coordinate and clean up if it's only the map that is changing, I think we're
Yep.
fine. If the description is incorrect, it will come back.
yeah, I think it's just the map.
I think it's a map item as well. Thank you, Commissioner Novak.
Yes, there are no interchanges on 50. But good eye, Mr. Novak.
Is there any other questions on this one? No? Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, I'll accept a motion then. And you can include in your motion then if you'd like that the map will be updated if needed.
I move to formally amend CAMPO's federal fiscal year 2021-2024 Transportation Improvement Program as presented and revised to change the map.
Second?
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you so much. Okay, we're now on to agenda item number 6, which is our non-action items. So do we have any reports or items?
Just have a couple of items to bring up for the board. I think we'll have another opportunity next month to fix the tip right away. We'll likely have another tip amendment, one item meeting for CAMPO next month in August. In September, there's a couple of items coming forward, one of which would be a presentation by the Nevada Department of Transportation on the US 50 corridor study for Lyon County. And so wanted to bring that back at the request of Commissioner Henderson. So that's something to look forward to in September. But yeah, I'm keeping it brief today. Oh, I do have one last thing I want to mention specifically regarding one of our staff members. I want to congratulate Kelly Norman. She recently received her AICP certification. So that's a big step for her. So I just wanted to
Right,
recognize her. for that.
congratulations. Yay. That's wonderful.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Any other members have anything to report or share or ask? Nope. Okay, that was really easy today. Do we have any final public comment? Seeing none, then if there's no objection, I'm going to adjourn the CAMPO board and we'll give us till about 1:15 and we'll start as the RTC board. Thank you for a good meeting. Commission to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Bagwell,
Here.
Vice Chair Schutte,
Here.
Member Dodson,
Here.
Member Macquarie,
Here.
Member Novak,
Here.
a quorum's present.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment to start us off today? Seeing none, okay. We're now on agenda item number 4, which is approval of our minutes of June 8th, 2022. Do I have any corrections? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion for approval.
I move to approve the June 8th, 2022 RTC meeting minutes as presented.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any,
I'm abstaining.
oh, you're
wasn't there.
abstaining?
Yeah, was-
Okay, let the
Yeah.
record reflect 4 ayes and 1 abstention. Okay, we're now on to item 5A, which is discussion and possible action regarding reestablishing and increasing fares for Jack. Ms. Schutte, may I have your disclosure, please?
NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose conflicts of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. My nephew is Chris Martinovich, who is employed by Carson City and will be presenting this item concerning JAC fares or Jack fares. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. The results of this item will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his service with the city, and we are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other resident of Carson City. NRS 281A.420 only requires abstention in clear cases, and the independent judgment of a reasonable person in my position would not be impacted by my familial relationship. Therefore, I do not have a disqualifying conflict and will be voting on this matter.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, are you going to take us through it, Alex?
I'm going to start on this
Oh,
one.
Chris is going to do it,
Just
sorry.
to kind of introduce and tee it up. So as this board knows, this is the last of 3 items regarding potential fare increases that have been brought to the RTC in 3 subsequent months. This is the final item. Staff have done an outreach effort and collected those information and those public comments, and those are included in the packet. And Alex is going to take us through sort of a summary of this. But essentially, there are sort of a few different options here we're looking at. We could continue to move and recommend increasing the fares as presented and discussed, as recommended in the staff report. Or we could look at potentially increasing a portion to a lesser degree of the fares. We could continue the fares at the previous rate of what they have been since 2005. Or in theory, I guess we could continue to have fares be free for an extended period if that were the option for the board. So wanted to just kind of go through those items. Alex will take us through the item specifically. I did want to mention that, through this process, we've spoken to a number of people, and, it's clear that I think Jack provides a valuable service to Carson City. It's part of our transportation network. It's part of our transportation system. And so we're looking to ensure that it's viable in the long term. And so fares could be a portion of that solution for the long term. So Alex, why don't you take us through that? But I just wanted to tee that up and provide that background.
Thank you, Chris. Alex Cruz, Transit Coordinator. So beginning on packet page 13, staff have included a short presentation on Jack fares, which I will briefly review. So Jack fares have not increased since 2005, and they have averaged about $97,200 annually, while our ridership has held fairly steady with the exception of a couple of pandemic-affected years. Jack also continues to work at providing a better service, including the enhancements like 5 new buses and a contactless fare payment system, to go along with future projects like a downtown transit center. Because of these factors, staff recommended a possible fare increase shown on packet page 14 and began a public outreach campaign to gather public opinion on the proposed fares. Staff held a public meeting, posted flyers in all shelters and buses, and even road buses to gather rider input. 10 comments were received, and those are available. Those comments are found on packet page 19. Comments included support for the increase, as well as concern from riders about the increase during a time of rising inflation. So should the RTC vote to return to fares, staff have laid out a schedule with August and September being used to prepare the riders and the buses for the fares, and also to coordinate with necessary city departments for the handling of the fare revenue. Fares would then start to begin to be collected in October of this year. Staff also worked on a fare equity analysis found on packet page 21. The analysis shows the possibility of a disparate impact on minorities and households with income below $30,000. But staff believe that the mitigations in place, including a gradual fare increase and multiple methods for fare payment, including cash and contactless, would help lessen the impact on those affected most by the possible fare increases. So with that, I'm available to answer any questions.
Does any member have a question? Mr. Novak?
Yeah, on packet page 24, I see the possible mitigations. I wasn't sure which ones we would be going forward with, or do we have additional discussion on those?
The possible mitigations mostly come from like the contactless fare payment system and some of the other ideas, but essentially we would use all of them to help us lessen. It's just something that we looked at all the different ways that we can lessen that impact, and we want to go forward with, the contactless fare payment system is a big one. Gradual increase, that's why the proposal was $1.50 instead of the $2 going ahead. So we would look to try to do all of them if possible, but it would depend on the direction from the RTC board.
Okay, and with the population in Carson aging, what age you become a senior for a free pass?
That's a great question. It's 60 years old.
Okay. And with all the new developments around town, higher density, I would expect you'd get more ridership, but we'll see how that turns out.
It'll be interesting to see. Along those lines, can you help me understand the mitigation of the capped fare that you have listed on that page? It's not that we're capping their fare, they're indicating that they don't want to spend more than an amount of money. Is that, I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. It's not that an individual can say, the most I'm going to spend on riding a bus is $40, and he can ride it as much as he wants that month. That's not what that means, right? He can just set in his own little handheld device or whatever, telling him where he's at. I'm just trying to understand that as a mitigation and what that means.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the cap fares is basically something that's kind of built into our contactless fare payment system. We actually set those caps. So the $40 would be like that's the cost of our monthly pass. So it's a way for riders who maybe don't have that $40 available at once. If they continue to use the app and continue to pay and they reach that $40, then the system's automatically going to know that within this 30-day period, they reached their limit and they essentially bought a pass. And so we wouldn't charge them anymore until that 30-day period starts again. So we would set 3 different caps, one for like a daily cap, one for 15 days, which is about half a month, and then one for the 30 days, so which would equal out to that monthly pass. So
Well, this needs to be clearer. That makes more sense what you're saying, but I didn't get that out of reading this. So you're saying that are you indicating to me, let me go, can you put back up the fare?
Yeah.
I want to make sure we're all on the same understanding. Good thing I asked. Okay, I could read this a couple of ways. So if I look at it and say I'm one way $1.50, so let's say in a normal trip they're going to be $3, right? Because they went somewhere and they came home. So they're $3. So are you telling me that within a 30-day period, once they hit 40, it'll stop charging them the $1.50 each way for everybody? So that the maximum anyone pays is $40?
Yeah, that is correct. So once someone's set up with the account on Token Transit, which would be our fare payment system, we would set one, say, for a day for $4 to encourage, if you ride it 3 times, you hit that max, there's actually a little bit of a discount. And then once you hit that 30-day period, you hit $40, you're not going to get a payment again. And yeah, so it's essentially set at our pass prices. So.
Okay.
And forgot to mention, since Token Transit is account-based, that's where that each individual rider would hit their cap.
Yeah, I don't think that's clear. It is now more clear to me. And then monthly pass reduced. Who's the $20 group instead of the $40? So I'm assuming it's that same capping would occur based on which threshold level you're hitting?
Yeah, and then so our reduced, the $20 is for our senior riders who maybe don't sign up for the senior bus pass, someone that might be disabled, military, and our youth. So those are those reduced passes that we already, they receive reduced fare, and then they also receive a reduced monthly pass as well.
So talk to me about a senior. Why wouldn't they take the free one?
We would hope they would. It
I'm
does
just,
require.
again, I'm trying to understand. So to be able to be eligible for the senior free, they have to sign up through aging? Is that the right
Yeah,
group
so
or something? Because isn't it aging that's given us the money to offset that one?
yeah, that's correct. So we have, we do need sign up. So through the Nevada ADSD department, they have a form that we fill out. It's just very basic questions. And then once they fill that out, they receive that pass that same day. We would also be able to add it to their, if they have a
Profile.
contact list, they'd be able to add it on there as well. But if they don't make it to our senior bus pass event and maybe they just haven't gone to the senior center to sign up or to the Jack office to sign up, they'd still be able to get that reduced fare. Maybe somebody's out of town and they don't want to sign up for a yearly pass and they're only here for a couple months, then they'd still be able to at least receive a reduced fare.
Okay. Oh, I'm glad we talked about that. I think that was I don't think any of us caught it that the system was actually going to convert them to a monthly pass, in essence. So it allows someone that doesn't have the $40 at the front end. Well, then I'm going to ask the most stupid question of all. Why would anyone buy a pass? Because I would just, right? Why would I do that?
I think it would just depend on budgeting. Maybe somebody has, the money up front and they want to get rid of it, and that way they don't worry about it after that. They know that they're set to go. So that's kind of a good way of doing it just ahead of time, or if they want to go into the Jack office and they're nearby, they can buy a monthly pass. And maybe they're just not using the fare payment system and they're buying actual passes.
So the guy that's not going to use the electronic, I'm just talking this through in my mind is why would I buy a pass
Yeah.
when it's going to automatically calculate it for me? I might only spend $30 that month because it'll take track for me. Okay. So is the system, then they would put their credit card system in it and it's going to store it. So it'll just automatically be able to do everything electronic.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any more questions, Mr. Dotson?
Just a quick one. Would that system also track if they were paying by cash?
It would not. We're going to work on to make sure that, if somebody does have cash and they want to come in and buy a bus pass, but they want to use token transit, then they can come into us. That's something we're going to have to work out with the vendor. Hopefully it would, but it's something that we'll work out with them and see if it's possible, but we would like that.
For you to be able to manually hit a record
Yeah.
in
and
the office that said cash payment.
Exactly. If they came in, if maybe they just don't have a debit card or something, but they could still have a phone, then, we should be able to help them.
Okay. Does anybody have any more questions? Chaz, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I support the proposed incremental fare increase, but I guess we'll get to that in a vote.
Yeah. Do we have any public comment on this item? And we will acknowledge again that we had public comment that was included within the packet synopsis. With one of those that, again, I think is moot because of the way you're talking about this. There was somebody that was asking to keep the 10 ride pass, right?
That's correct. And
Okay.
that was the basis behind the fare capping at 15 days is to help somebody that wasn't going to do a 10 ride.
Right, okay. I just want to make sure we're addressing those public comments, other than I don't want to see the fee increase, but I think it's fair to say we have not raised the price of the fare for a very long time. And we were fortunate enough to have federal dollars that were given to us to do no fares for the last couple of years, so that was advantageous. But while you believe there's the alternative for this board to say we're not going to do any, that's not really accurate either, because the budget's already, we really don't have the authority to go say, hey, Board of Supervisors, you're going to have to cough up another 400,000 to support the Jack bus. That's not really going to be advantageous or reasonable either. The percentage, looking at the increases, I can't find anything that shows it's outrageous or unacceptable or not within reach, because I guess that's one of the things I'm concerned about. You know, are we going so far that we end up, we're going to see the ridership drop off completely because they really can't afford it? So part of me is, again, there's no reason that we can't just look at it next year or kind of watch what's happening with the ridership to make sure it's not priced out where, but with the price of gas right now, this is still looking really good. Not Supervisor Schutte, sorry, Commissioner Schutte.
Okay.
Wrong meeting.
You know, back to the 10-day pass, and I understand, you know, that getting away from printing passes and all of that. In here, and it says staff are working to lessen the administrative costs of printing and providing different pass options. So is there a way for somebody to purchase instead of a monthly pass, but just that occasional, but 10-day to get a price break when they're inconsistent? Is that a possibility, or was that just too administratively complicated? Not in a negative way, but just.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, it was something that we were looking at. Is just with the amount of like with reduced rides and the standard rides, and then the monthly passes. That cost of that one pass was actually gonna add a lot more, and we figured that with trying to add like a 15-day fare capping and a daily fare capping, that hopefully that kind of mitigated a little bit of that. And you know, if it's someone's riding infrequently, it'd be hard to say, you know, we provide this cost for someone that was probably not going to ride very often. So we're hoping to mitigate it that way.
No, that makes sense. Thank you.
Anybody else have any other?
Alex, I was wondering about the implementation schedule. You know, one time there was some concern about doing it too quickly, like in the August timeframe. I see that's the target now is October. Just wondered if that needs to be a part of the approval process here for this. And I guess, just wondering what happens in the interim. I know you're talking about, you know, doing training and implementing the contactless payment system, but is everybody riding free up until that point? And then, you know, what implementation are you going to have taken place, if that's the case, between now and the October date?
Yeah. So the way the schedule is kind of laid out right now, we're hoping to start October 2nd or 3rd, I believe, is in there. And so that gives us time to make sure any sort of contract issues are done with the person that's going to provide the Wi-Fi, make sure that we give them plenty of time to come in and install that hardware. It would give us time to get our contactless fare payment system all settled away, and then do any sort of training with our drivers as far as the contactless, and then also getting back to fares. It's been 2 years since we've done fares, 2.5 years. So we have to retrain a lot of those drivers, and then also train ourselves to make sure that we're doing the process correctly with the treasurer and finance and all that kind of stuff. So basically, August, we were kind of settling a lot of those things in place and scheduling. September is probably a lot of training and going over those kinds of things, and then making sure that we have a little bit of 2 weeks to kind of test out that process. And then October 2nd, we would start, and that's when we continue, that we'd actually turn on the fairs. And this would also give us a little bit of time to make sure that we start letting all the riders know that fairs are coming, and, get prepared. The drivers can let everyone know as people get on board, and so it's not a big surprise to them, just so that everyone's ready.
Alex, when do the 5 new buses actually start rolling on the street?
We don't have an exact date of when they start rolling on the street yet. There's still a couple things that they need to be fitted with, things like radios and things like that. And then some of the buses that have to get taken off the road have some of that hardware that we're going to need. But it's looking like they should be available hopefully within the next 30 days. They are here, and our fleet team is working on it. They're doing their best to try to get them out there as soon as possible. So, we're excited. They should be here soon.
And then anyone that had the 10 ride pass, that if they have 2 left or whatever, we're still going to honor it in October and stuff, right? So anyone that currently, I guess, before the free stuff came in, do we have a bunch of those out, or we don't know?
It's hard to say. I know some have been purchased. We've heard from a couple riders who did purchase right before everything kind of went to free fare. So our plan is to honor them. That'll be part of our implementation process. We'll set a time for hopefully, within this time, try to use up those passes, things like that. And honor, because we had the 10-day passes, but we also had 30-day passes go out, and then single ride tickets as well. So
the 30 days, didn't they expire?
They might have, but they might have
the
bought
10
one
day
like
didn't
in
matter when you bought it,
February or like on March 1st. I think we went to free fare March 10th, so they might have bought it right before it went to free fare.
So anybody that bought in March of 2020, you'll honor that as a month, and then anybody that has anything on their punch, 10-day punch, you'll.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
I just want to put that out on the record again, but, so it's not somebody from February, it's somebody in the month of March that had a partial month because of the free. Okay. Just want to put that on the record, and I don't think we need an effective date if we use as presented, because the presentation indicates it's October, but you may include it in a motion also. That's fine. Or potentially, I want to discuss on the record is, we may want to craft the motion to say something like no earlier than October 3rd, because in case something goes awry, you then don't have to bring the agenda item back. So I think that's really a more favorable answer, is that we say that we approve the proposed Jack Fair structure to not be implemented earlier than October 3rd, 2022. If that's okay with everyone, I think it gives, just in case we do the buses and we need 2 more weeks because it didn't quite go as planned. So if that would work for everyone, I think that's a better option. Not that I don't trust that everything will work perfectly, but I haven't seen that happen too often lately. Okay, and again, there was no one from the public. Just want to make sure. Okay, then I guess we're ready for a motion.
I'll do it. I move to approve the proposed Jack fare structure as presented and not to be implemented any earlier than October 3rd, 2022.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. It was a lot of work. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 5B, which is discussion and possible action regarding direction to staff for federal fiscal year 2023 transportation infrastructure projects. Oh, no, not that. Our fiscal year, sorry. 2023 transportation infrastructure projects for Performance District 5. Okay, Kelly, you're gonna just give us a briefing on this one?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff used a data-driven, performance-based process to prioritize projects for collectors and arterials for District 5 and local roads for all districts with ARPA funding. This presentation will concentrate on District 5 project prioritization and selection. District 5 is scheduled for construction in 2023 and can be seen in blue in the northwest corner of the map. The project prioritization process consists of 4 steps: data collection, pre-screening, analysis, and selection. Carson City's pavement plan is based on performance-based planning and funding, which contributes to and aligns with the Carson City's asset management initiative. The data collection step includes compiling all necessary assets for pre-screening and analysis. This includes PCI from Paver, and PCI is the Pavement Condition Index, and that's used to rate the condition of pavement section based on the number and types of distresses in the pavement. Staff collect work history and GIS data in relation to PCI and street assets. Potential projects were narrowed down in the pre-screening process through examination of specific PCI ranges, which determine the types of treatment, either a preservation, rehabilitation, or reconstruction project. I'll speak more about the analysis and selection process in the next slides. Basically, staff analyzed each road segment PCI in connection with planning and asset data to score and select projects. Potential projects determined in the pre-screening process were then analyzed to understand transportation asset needs along each potential project corridor. Quantifiable measures of curb ramps, sidewalks, crashes, planned projects, and bike routes were entered into the project matrix to rank road segments for prioritization. The scoring matrix shows factors important to evaluating the preferred project. For district projects, this includes isolating arterials and collectors with higher traffic volumes, coordinating with utility and other public works plan projects, identifying the criticality of the PCI range. Are the PCIs within critical ranges where if we don't do anything now, the corridor falls to a more expensive treatment? Other important factors accounting for the matrix score include presence of transit routes, bike routes, or regionally planned projects. A selection of preferred projects was based on the project prioritization matrix score and accounts for cost. The majority of cost is based on the treatment type, with preservation in general costing the least and reconstruction costing the most. Efficiency. This is where we utilize our dig once approach. Are there utility projects planned? Can we maximize or combine funding sources? And constructability. This is where we weigh the road conditions along a corridor to determine how we can determine the preferred treatment for a specific corridor segment. After weighing all of these factors through the project prioritization matrix, staff determined a short list of preferred projects for District 5. This includes surface preservation projects for Mountain and Medical Parkway and rehabilitation projects for Long Street and Winnie Lane. Surface preservation projects cover longer road segments. Due to increased costs of rehabilitation projects, we concentrate on smaller road segments to improve and treat the pavement. In this table at the bottom, you'll see the project score based on the prioritization scoring matrix and the order of ranking. For preferred projects, Medical Parkway and Winnie Lane scored the highest. The pavement management plan states preventative and corrective maintenance projects are a high priority. When streets begin to fail, they fail quickly, and the cost to repair them increase dramatically. Focusing on maintaining streets in good condition provides the most efficient use of city's limited resources. The final project selected include Mountain Street and Medical Parkway, which are both pavement preservation projects, and Winnie Lane, a rehabilitation project. Here you can see the final project recommendations with cost estimates totaling $1.9 million. The cost estimates for all four potential projects are listed on packet page 26, if you're interested in how much Long Street costs as well. The total available funding from infrastructure sales tax and gas and diesel fuel taxes for projects in FY 2023 is $2.05 million. With that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Members?
Kelly, simple one. Did you pre-screen all the roads in District 5? Or, how do you make your first cut? Because there's quite a few to choose from, and I just...
There is.
Thanks for the question, Commissioner Novak. And for the record, Brian Byrne did most of this analysis and he couldn't attend tonight. But so Kelly and I are sort of pinch hitting here. But essentially, the first step we look at is we use our paver, the paver asset management database, and we look at the PCI condition. And so we look at, okay, certain roads, collector and arterials is our starting point. Some of those were recently reconstructed. Some of those recently had treatments on them the last round. Some of them are so bad that we know that the cost of doing that exceeds our available budget in a particular fiscal year. And so that's sort of the pre-screening process. And then we take those slightly narrower projects and run them through the more robust analysis to determine, okay, of those, how do we look at volume and all those items that Kelly mentioned. So essentially every collector and arterial road does enter the system, but most of them, I'd say a good portion of them are probably screened out relatively early.
Right. I know, I was just looking at the map and said, all right, if you just looked at the arterials and collectors, there's a lot fewer. But I see you've got some other ones coming on the local roads as well. Okay, thank you. That's all I got.
Anybody have any other questions? Is there any public oh, go ahead, Chaz, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, I do have a question. So, I mean, obviously we understand the limitations with the funding, but there are some streets, particularly Ormsby and Coombs Canyon, that have some horrendous cracks in them right now, 3, 4, 5 inches wide. And I'm wondering if somewhere in the overall budget, there might not be room to try and allocate some money where those really bad cracks might be, cut and patched, filled in, because waiting another 5 years before doing anything about those, because that's when District 5 is going to come around again. I mean, those things are going to be absolutely terrible. So my request is that staff looks to see if they can find some money somewhere to do something about the cracks, not the overall, the main streets are not that bad, but the cracks are awful.
I appreciate that comment, Commissioner McQuarrie. We see a lot of large cracks on many roadways across the city. I do know that our street operations and street maintenance team have investigated numerous ways to solve that cracking problem, whether it's using a rubberized material or an aggregated rubberized material or sawing out portions of the road. I think we've tried various things over the years, and you can see those treatments on various roads in Carson City. I don't know that we found a silver bullet to that. But I will certainly bring that up to them, and maybe we can work together with our street operations, as I mentioned, and see if we can't get some of those cracks in those roads and other roads across Carson City examined and filled.
Thank you.
That just reminds me, never mind, at some point, didn't we have a project on Solomon that used a sample material that we did to practice to see?
I believe are you talking specifically crack sealing or slurrying?
No, a slurry, something they added in or whatever. Did it work that it was going to be better?
Yeah, we've tried a couple of things, and we're still experimenting. So on Long Street, that pavement includes a fiber added into the mix. We also did a fiber reinforced mix on Curry Street, which I believe is going to be slurried next week or the week after. And so those we'll have to see how those go. But yeah, we're starting to put fiber in our slurries and as a way to mitigate what's called the reflective cracking. I don't know that it's going to fill 2 or 3 inch wide cracks in our pavement. But
Right.
it's a new approach we're trying.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll accept a motion then.
I move to approve the 3 recommended District 5 projects as presented.
Second?
I have a motion.
I'll say,
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
aye.
Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. Okay, we're now on to item 5C, which is discussion and possible action regarding direction to staff on pavement preservation projects for the local neighborhood roadways with our ARPA money. And so I'll have to start with my own disclosure. NRS 281A 420 requires me to disclose conflicts of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. For this item, staff is recommending a pavement preservation project that would improve local road pavement along approximately 100 residential parcels in Performance District 1. I recently purchased my late father's home, which is one of the residential parcels in the proposed project area. The proposed pavement preservation work is unlikely to meaningfully increase or decrease the value of the parcel, and I will not be affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other property owner within the proposed project area. NRS 281A 420 only requires abstention in clear cases, and the independent judgment of a reasonable person in my position would not be impacted by owning a residential parcel in the proposed project area. I make this disclosure in the interest of full transparency, but because I do not have a disqualifying conflict, I will be voting. I don't see any other disclosures on that, so, okay, Kelly, are you gonna take us through this one?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In February 2022, the Board of Supervisors designated $2.5 million in American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, funding to pave local neighborhood roadways in Carson City. Local roads make up 2/3 of all the streets in Carson City. However, when you look at the local roads that are eligible for pavement preservation, the actual pool of projects is relatively limited and disjointed. However, keeping that in mind, staff looked to evaluate the potential ARPA projects using the same methodology with some modifications as the District 5 projects. The modifications included evaluation of current and future district projects, proximity to and continuity with higher volume network roadways, and other regional, social, and economic factors such as traffic patterns and population density. In addition, staff evaluated neighborhood roads that were on the cusp of deteriorating to a point where preservation would no longer be a sustainable option, that is, until a longer-term funding solution can be identified. Lastly, we aim to create projects that are easy and efficient to construct and will make a visible difference in their community. Some roadway segments within these identified project areas may fall outside the PCA ranges that we would typically treat with a slurry. However, when looking at the group of roads as a whole, the project is eligible for pavement preservation and will benefit from pavement preservation improvements. The 2019 to 2023 Pavement Management Plan on page 5 states, to capitalize on opportunities for construction cost savings, large projects with a particular type of pavement treatment within a consolidated geographic area are likely to be recommended over smaller dispersed projects in the city, in which the city would have multiple contractors. This approach reduces mobilization costs and capitalizes on economies of scale. I'll refer you to packet page 34 for the list of projects, the treatment type and preliminary cost estimates. The distribution of projects across all 5 districts can be seen on packet page 37. The need to make improvements to neighborhood streets is great, and this is a first small step in trying to address the documented need for local roadway improvements in Carson City. This process has highlighted the challenge Carson City will face when looking to address our local road network, pavement infrastructure needs, and one that staff is looking forward to developing and refining. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does any member have a question? Mr. Novak?
Kelly, I see the fiscal year and estimated cost, and if the money's available now, why are we waiting a couple of years' worth? I see district, I'm on packet page 34. 500,000 this year, 1 million next year, and 1 million the year after? Or is the intent to get it all done now?
The general plan with the implementation of the ARPA projects is to more closely align them with the district projects for more efficiencies of construction. So for instance, we're moving forward with District 5 right now to couple with our District 5, moving forward with District 5 ARPA project to couple with our District 5 regional roadway project. We're going to plan to do that similarly with District 1 and District 2, couple those sort of together. They're sort of in proximity to one another. We may get some efficiencies with construction and constructability in that sense. And then the last two projects, they're planned out there in fiscal 25. We plan to design those in-house, and if we can accelerate those, we certainly will. There's no specific timing with those districts. We can look to accelerate those, but at this point, there's sort of a balance of other projects we have internally at Public Works versus the amount of projects we can administer and implement and inspect and have management of over the duration. So that's sort of the balance that we made, was to distribute these over those 3 fiscal years.
Thank you.
But again, there's no requirement for that. The funding
No
is
requirement for that.
available now.
Funding's available now.
And again, it's just estimated, so
Yeah.
if some other grants come, lots of things change in
Oh,
the
yeah.
3 years, they have the ability to move that if necessary.
Yeah, I think that would be my, recommendation. If you can get them out sooner, yeah, do it.
Okay. We can't go any later, so I will
Right,
say
no
that.
later.
No later.
Right. Yeah, Mr. Dodson?
Kelly, I was curious about the project listed for District 3. It's a roadbed mod. It's a little different than the other districts or preservation projects. What was the thinking there on selecting that one?
Menlo Drive was selected through our prioritization process over local roads, other local roads, because of network connectivity, the volume that happens along Menlo Drive, transit use. There's a transit route that runs along there. It has a daily vehicle volume of about 2,000. And it's located near a densely populated area.
I'll jump in to
Yeah.
Commissioner Dodson, is that there were other elements that we're considering for Menlo Drive, such as continuation of our sewer and water rehabilitation project that we did on Airport Road. Menlo was used as a detour during that project extensively, and the pavement has shown that deterioration relatively quickly. I think we're coordinating with our utility division to potentially include improvements to the water and sewer system that we did on Airport Road. Continuing down Menlo, the same conditions extend and exist there, and it's sort of a logical connection. Could we do additional preservation on other roads? Certainly, but we thought internally in this particular location, in this particular district, Menlo Drive would be a good use of that funding, given the history in the area.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions or comments? No? Is there any public comment on this item? No? Okay, if you guys are ready, I do want to put on the record, because I did have a lot of, it's the only area, which was the question on Menlo, because I had quite a few that were upset that Lapeer Drive was not selected. So I just want to put that on the record that I too asked the question on Menlo versus Lapeer, and the traffic count on Menlo was like over 2,000 a day. The traffic count on Lapeer was 200 a day, but also that Lapeer is being considered in a grant application for some improvements when we do the Empire School for Safe Routes to School, so it's part of that. So just for those that might be listening, all the roads in much of these neighborhoods could really use improvement. And you can come on the road on the house that I live, and I can assure you that the cracks all the way down the road are at least 3 inches wide, and when you drive down the road, it goes clack, 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 clack. So we just have to trust that staff are selecting the roads of most value, or that there's everything to go along with this. And so I just want to put that on the record and answer their question, though, publicly. So, thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else, yep, I'll take a motion. Ms. Schutte.
I move to direct staff to pursue the 5 recommended ARPA-funded neighborhood pavement preservation projects as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect the motion was unanimous. Thank you.
I love the alliteration.
Yeah.
Pavement preservation project as presented.
Has a good sound to it, huh? Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 5D. Discussion and possible action regarding a determination that Nevada Barricade and Sign Company is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for contract 2330050 for the short line striping. Ms. Schutte, may I have your disclosure, please?
Yes. My nephew, Chris Martinovich, is the city staff presenter on this item concerning a striping contract. My disclosure and analysis from item 5A applies here as well. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. The result of this item will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his service with the city, and we are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other resident of Carson City. I have no disqualifying conflict, and I will be voting.
Thank you. This is pretty standard. It's just our annual contracts that we do. So is there anybody in the public that actually has any questions on this contract? Anyone have any questions on this contract? Pretty standard. I'll accept a motion then.
I move to award the contract as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no.
Aye.
Let the record reflect the motion was passed unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 5E, which is discussion and possible action regarding the submission of a federal fiscal year 2022 Safe Routes to School grant application for $3.75 million, subject to a 20% match of $750,000. Ms. Schutte, may I have your disclosure, please?
Chris Martinovich is still my nephew and will be presenting on this item concerning a grant application for safety improvements. My disclosure from analysis from item 5A applies here as well. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. The result of this item will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his service with the city. We are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other resident of the city. I have no disqualifying conflict, and I will be voting.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, are you going to give us a little bit of a overview on this?
Give a little
Thank you.
summary. So this item for the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant application, this program is a new program under the Infrastructure and Investment and Jobs Act. So this is the first time that this program has been available for us to submit. The program is really focused on implementation or developing safety action plans or safety action plan projects. There's really 2 components of the program. The first component that we could be seeking grant funding for is for the plan development, and the second component is for the plan implementation, which is the component that we will be seeking grant funding for, would be the implementation portion of the program. In 2020, Carson City and the RTC approved the Western Nevada Safe Routes to School Master Plan, which included and can be considered under this grant program as a safety action plan, making the projects in that plan eligible for this grant application. It's really focused on multimodal safety and access for all users around our transportation network. Staff identified the Empire Elementary School grouping of projects that are listed on packet page 89 as a good group of projects to include as part of this grant for a variety of reasons. But most notably is that Empire Elementary School has the highest number of students who walk and bike to school of all of our schools in Carson City. Additionally, there are some safety items that we've identified through the Western Nevada or through the Safe Routes to School Master Plan, the Carson City Safe Routes to School Master Plan, that we're looking to benefit, particularly along Fairview Drive. And that's the major component of this project, is to make enhancements to the crosswalk at Desatoya, as well as continue and construct a multi-use path or other similar facility from essentially Bud-Eye Way, where the path kind of ends, all the way up to US 50, where there's the US 50 bike path and national US 50 bike route already exists. So we're looking to make that connectivity and provide better access in and around Empire Elementary School. Program, as was mentioned, is as an 80-20 split, meaning 80% of the dollars will come from the federal government, requiring a 20% local match. Right now, we are seeking a request, $3 million from the federal government and $750,000 in match. We anticipate the match coming from our District 3 performance measures, aligning with the schedule in fiscal year 2026, which is good timing because when we look at our paver database and we look at the pavement condition of Fairview Drive, we see that, in that time frame, it's starting to be on that threshold of, pave preservation, reconstruct. We're starting to see that threshold start to tip. And if we could take advantage and leverage our local dollars to gain an additional pot of federal money, I think it's definitely a possibility to get more out of a particular project and make more enhancements in the community. So that's kind of the summary of the grant application. We will be working with a consultant to develop the grant itself and submit on or before September 15th, the deadline for the grant application. So happy to answer questions. Otherwise, that's what I have. Thank you.
Does any member have a question? Okay, I don't see. Is there any public comment on this item? I don't see any. I'm willing to take a motion. It's a great project.
I will do.
Okay, Mr. Novak?
I move to approve the submission of the grant application as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Yeah, that's a really good project that's out there. Okay, we're now on to agenda item number 6, which is our non-action items. Do we have any managers report?
I have a few items. Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to first mention that we've hired 2 new Safe Routes to School champions. We've hired Erica and Lori, and they began last week, I believe, which is exciting. Erica will be helping us in Douglas County, rolling out our Safe Routes to School program down there, and Lori will be helping us here in Carson City. So we're excited to have them back. We're excited to have champions back and participating in our schools and promoting walking and biking in and around our schools. So appreciate Scott getting that going and getting them on board. Regarding also our Western Nevada Safe Routes to School program, we're coordinating with Douglas County and NDOT regarding the creation of a Douglas County Safe Routes to School master plan. We anticipate hiring a consultant under that program and that federal apportionment to work with Douglas County, our partners down there, and eventually that contract would come to this board since the Western Nevada Safe Routes to School program is through and funded through the RTC. We do plan to work with Douglas County on working together and having potentially a cost share for their portion of that work as well. So we're coordinating with them and NDOT on that. I think it was mentioned earlier today during the CAMPO meeting that the Jump Around Carson has received 5 new buses, so I won't go into the details there, but we're excited to have those, and we do plan to order additional buses going forward for the next couple of fiscal years. Maybe you've noticed, I'm not sure of how many people have, but our traffic signal maintenance crews have been installing reflective backplates on many of our traffic signals throughout Carson City. So if you drive down Carson Street, many of those signals now have those yellow banners around each signal head. Those are relatively new. We've been installing those in areas that didn't have them in the last month. I think we'll complete that here in the next couple of weeks, maybe to a month or so. So that's a FHWA proven counter safety measure, making the signal heads more visible, especially at night. They're more reflective. And so we're able to see those. And so I just wanted to point that out, that we're doing that work across the city. Otherwise, there's also a project many of you may have seen on 5th Street. There's an improvement going on there as part of the Lampa Ranch development. They've been installing utilities, and eventually they will be widening Fifth Street between a new, what they call Spine Road near the Lampa House and the bridge, all the way out to Solomon. So that'll become a wider section of road, 2 lanes toward the city or the westbound direction. That work has been completed, I'm told, as of today, and so the road should be open tomorrow, back to normal conditions. There will be other traffic control restrictions out there, but should no longer be a full road closure at this point. So wanted to put that out there as well. Lastly, we do anticipate one item for an August RTC meeting related to a contract for a Jack service provider, the contactless fare contract. We were hoping to get that to the July meeting. There were some items we needed to work out with the contract and the district attorney's office, and so we weren't able to bring that forward. We fully anticipate bringing that forward in the August meeting. So with that, that's what I have on my transportation manager's report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 6B is to go over the street operations activity report. Is there anything you want to highlight in that?
Nothing specific I wanted to highlight. Commissioner McQuarrie mentioned crack sealing, so we've done some crack sealing, 220 blocks of sealant. These blocks are relatively large. They're not like little cubes. They're large blocks of sealant. So we're doing that across the city. Pothole operations. Of course, there's a variety of other things we do, a lot of street sweeping and things like that. So there's nothing specific I wanted to highlight unless anyone had any particular questions.
Does any member have a question?
Yep. Chris, I just wanted to point out, we just approved that contract on William and Carson Street, but Carson City Street Crew does a lot of that striping, legends and marking and painting.
Correct. We do a lot of striping in those high pedestrian areas and around our school zones.
Okay, no one has anything? Okay, then 6C to run through our project status report.
Yeah, I'll run through our project status report. Our first project is our Edmonds multi-use path. This project really hasn't changed much. We are still waiting for the BLM to approve our easement so that we can move forward with construction of that path. The plans are essentially done and sitting on the shelf, ready for bidding more or less, and we're just waiting for the BLM to provide that final document allowing us to go forward. Kings Canyon Trailhead and Roadway Improvement Project, all the work up there has been completed. We're working to close out the grant. I haven't seen the final budget reconciliation. When I do get that, I want to include that in here. I haven't received that from the Central Federal Lands Division, but when I do, I want to understand, and I want this board to understand as well what the final budget ended up being. Roop Street Rehabilitation Project. This project, as mentioned in the past, is on hold. We plan to bid it this fall. Long Street District 2 project. This project, we achieved substantial completion. There are a number of punch list items that are ongoing and are being finalized out there with the contractor, but essentially the work is completed and the road is open. Robinson Area Sewer Project. This project was on schedule for the end of July. I'm told that there's a cement supply issue, and so I'm not sure exactly what our latest schedule is as of today. So I'm sure we will work on getting that. Once the cement is in place, we can finalize that and get that road paved out. Colorado Street CDBG project. There are, again, this is similar to the Roop Street project. We're planning to rebid this in October 2022. I do want to note that the Board of Supervisors, in coordination with the office, with the state office and the CDBG program, approved additional $102,000 toward the project. So I don't know if that's particularly made it on this. It may not have made that cutoff deadline, but that'll be augmented into the project in the near term. Center Drive reconstruction project is completed. We're finishing some punch list that may already be punch list item may already be completed, and so this project is on its way to being closed out. District 3 East 5th Street reconstruction project. The right turn lane is nearing completion. I believe they are paving this week, that turn pocket. They finished the concrete work, and then there'll be cleanup and grading finalization after that. The design of the roundabout itself is progressing. 30% design, I think, was submitted to NDOT a couple of weeks ago, and we're working toward 60% design. I do plan to bring an item to the RTC at a future meeting just to kind of give an update on the status of that and the results of what we talked about in the past. So we'll look for that in the next couple of months regarding that project status. The District
The
4.
good vendor on that project, I will tell you. They've been really good with the traffic and the flow and
Okay,
keeping the road open. I just want to
I'll pass it along. Thank
Yeah,
you.
please do, because usually it's the opposite. They've really, I have to travel that often, so they've really done a nice job there. Really a nice job.
Our District 4 Curry Street Pavement Preservation Project, this one is, we've completed a lot of the concrete ADA upgrades that we identified at that, and slurry seal, I believe, is planned either late next week or the week after. I don't have the latest schedule. They've been shifting things around, so it's hard for me to keep up with the individual day they've scheduled it. So that one is progressing. We should be done by the end of July. Similar story with the Solomon Road Pavement Preservation Project. That one is moving forward for slurry. On District 4 Silver Sage Pavement Preservation Project, I believe they slurried that one today. And so that one should be nice and black, and they'll get the striping done in the next couple of weeks. East William Street Complete Streets Project, we received an update at the CAMPO board, but we'll be moving forward with 30% design as was discussed at that point with our consultant, NCE, and we'll be bringing those design stages to the RTC as they get completed. The DMV Multi-Use Path Project. This project is one of our TAP-funded projects, similar to the Multi-Use Path to Colorado. We've got a surveyor complete. I believe the survey has been completed, and so we're just starting to get into the design process. And once we've gathered that data, we can start design. In addition to the map shown, of course, this includes rehabilitation of a few other paths across the city. And you've probably seen that the Parks Department is actually moving forward with some pavement preservation projects of their own, using a slurry, which is similar to what we will be doing under this project. And our last project is the Appian Way Signal and Intersection Project. We've got design well underway for this one, and this is to construct a signal at Appian Way, as was discussed as part of the TIP amendment in a previous CAMPO item tonight. With that, happy to answer any questions.
So on the Appian Way, this portion that's on here is only the design. What are we anticipating is the total cost for Appian? Because I think that one's gotten a lot more expensive than originally anticipated
I
too.
believe it's approximately 2.2 million.
Because we did get an appropriation, and then did we put in for some more?
Yeah,
Get some
that'll
more
be
help for it, so.
and that'll be reflected in this next update for sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Because it was like, ooh, that turned out more, everything's turning out more expensive than originally planned, and it's certainly not staff's fault that we're not making estimates these days, but
We're adding additional contingencies.
it's a good way to say it, huh? But, all right. Does any members have anything to share with anyone? Off this item? No? No additional staff comments or anything? Nothing? Okay, then we'll move on to our final public comment. Is there any members of the public? No? Well, if you guys do not object then, anybody? Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks for a good meeting, everyone.